All right, welcome to my first 2021 NFL mock draft. You can find my mock drafts this year at thehuddlereport.com. That's where I'm hosting that. They used to be on NFLDraftGeek.com. That website is no more. I've joined up with the Huddle Report, and I'm super excited for this because they've got some of the best mock drafters out there. A lot of guys that have won their Muddle Hawk draft contest against a lot of really good writers. So I'm excited to be a part of that team. And so that's where you're going to see mine. I'm going to try and get it out there, at least a mock every month, and as we get closer to the NFL season, I'm probably going to do one every week. So let's go ahead and get started. This is my first 2021 NFL mock draft. I don't like to do the one right after the draft just because you don't really get, that's just a lot of guesswork. And it's like, oh, here are names that I've heard, who maybe I've seen them on a broadcast, maybe I've seen them as I've watched other prospects. But when I used to do that, I felt like I was just throwing names at the wall, and it wasn't good. I was putting guys in my first round that ended up going undrafted. So what I've done lately is I used the summer to do all my scouting of that upcoming draft class, and then I do my mock right before the start of the football season. And I do that to have a better sense of who the prospects are, but then also I feel it's a little bit more accurate, and I'm getting a good gauge. So that's what I did here. I also used this first mock to kind of give my NFL predictions. So I didn't go to a sports book and say who had the best odds. I actually have, taken the time to kind of break down these teams and rank them based off of how I think they're going to finish. So it's kind of my NFL season predictions as well. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get in the mock and let's get going. So my first pick, I had the Jacksonville Jaguars picking number one. You can kind of see along the bottom down here somewhere is the ticker. So you're going to get a little preview of those teams. At least I'm going to do 10 at a time. So first pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. When I look at this team, I think they're looking to tank. They got rid of all their high-priced veteran, good defenders. They traded away Jalen Ramsey. They let go of Calais Campbell. Guys like that. Yannick Ngakoue, who knows where he's going to be playing if there's a season in 2020. But everything that I've seen with the Jaguars, I don't see them having a great season. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. So that's why I had them picking number one. As well as Minshew Mania was last year, he's not their future franchise. If they have the number one overall pick, they're going to go with Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback out of Clemson. He's a guy, it's easy to say he's the next Andrew Luck just because he's that highly touted quarterback that we've had, best quarterback since Andrew Luck, prospect. I've even said that myself. But when I watched Trevor Lawrence, I saw a lot of Andrew Luck. A lot of, you've got a guy that's, a big quarterback. He's 6'6", 240 pounds. Very similar. Andrew Luck was 6'4", 6'5", 240 pounds. Andrew Luck wasn't a bad athlete. He wasn't Peyton Manning where he's going to sit in the pocket. He can move around, and he's got deceptive athleticism. Trevor Lawrence has the same thing. Strong arm, can make throws, and it's just clutch. Trevor Lawrence came in as a true freshman to a team that was contending for a national championship already, and he took over from a veteran quarterback and led that team to a national championship. He led them to a second national championship game. This guy is the real deal. As I said before, best quarterback prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck, and I think he's going to end up being the number one overall pick. Pick 2, Washington football team. I don't know about anybody else. I like that they didn't rush into a new mascot, new brand, and they kind of are going to feel it out and take the time to do it right. But a little nitpicky. Would have been better instead of the Washington football team, why not the Washington Football Club? And maybe that's too soccer, too European football-ish. I like it. I think it would have been pretty cool to be the Washington Football Club. But like I said, maybe that's being a little nitpicky. But I am going quarterback as well. Here's another team. I love the hire of Ron Rivera. I think he's a guy who is going to bring some much-needed leadership to this organization. They cleaned house and revamped their scouting and general managership. And I think that's going to pan out. But I just don't think they're going to have a good season this upcoming year. They've got a lot of pieces, but they've got some issues. So I think they're going to struggle. But I think this is a good thing for them because it allows them to get the quarterback. It doesn't seem like they're a big fan of Dwayne Haskins. Haskins struggled in his rookie year, like a lot of quarterbacks do. I liked Haskins coming out. I would have loved to see him go back to school for another year, but it's just not working out. It didn't work out for him well. There's reports that he lost, the locker room, that the guys didn't like him. The Washington football team, Rivera and them, kicked the tires on a lot of the quarterbacks. And so you just see that they maybe aren't all in on Dwayne Haskins. So if they have a bad year, Haskins doesn't play well, they're going to go the route of a new quarterback. And so I have them taking Justin Fields here. I like Justin Fields quite a bit. Coming in year one and being elevated this team. And it's not like it's hard to elevate Ohio State further than they are, but he put them on his back and he showed a lot of those next level traits. He's not a perfect prospect. He needs another year, potentially two. But I think from what I saw of him on tape, continued development, I think he's got a chance to be very good. And so, Washington here gets their future franchise quarterback, and we can go from there. Eddie and Brent. Girls. Come on. All right, sorry about that. Had a little technical difficulties, but we are ready to move on to our third pick, and this is where we see our first non-quarterback go. And we're going to see the Carolina Panthers find a true number one receiver. Sorry, I had to sprint to go do something. I'm a little out of air, but all right, so Carolina Panthers. Here's a team that I've debated that they would potentially could go with a quarterback. They moved on from Cam Newton, and they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. And I thought, okay, Teddy Bridgewater is he's a good quarterback, a solid quarterback, but is he someone that they want to build this franchise around? And at first I wasn't too sure, and I'm like, okay, maybe they're a team that goes with a Trey Lance. Maybe, when I was like, oh, maybe they're a little bit higher and they'll go with Justin Fields. But the more I looked at Teddy Bridgewater's contract, they're committed to him. And taking a quarterback right here doesn't make a lot of financial success. So based off the contract that they gave Bridgewater, they're going to stick with him. Now, they need to provide help. And Joe Brady is their offensive coordinator. Joe Brady came from LSU. The Joe Brady offense that we saw, and yes, he wasn't the primary play caller, but that was his offensive attack. And what we saw there was they want to have spread it out, multiple receivers, and attack you. And that's what they need to build. And they've got guys like CJ Moore, who has shown the ability and shown the that he's got the ability to be a quality NFL wide receiver. I don't think he's a guy that is going to be a top 10 receiver in the league at any point, but I think he's a guy that is going to be a good quality starter. They've got Curtis Samuel. DJ Moore. I said CJ Moore. DJ Moore. Sorry about that. They've got Curtis Samuel. They brought in Robbie Anderson. And I think those guys are all right, but they're not the elite guys that they need. And so picking in the top 3, they have a chance to go out and get that. And Jamar Chase is available there. And I think this fits the Panthers in a couple ways because Jamar Chase fits what they want to do because Joe Brady had him in his offense at LSU. They're not reaching for him per se. I'm not as big of a Jamar Chase fan as other people are. And so I think, to me personally, this may be a little early, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to go this high. And so not only are they getting a guy that fits their offense, but they're a guy that's played in this offense before. So I think that's going to accelerate his learning process. They need and they don't have a guy like him on their roster. It's not like they have this type of player already and he's got to come in. He fills a role that they don't have, and I think that's going to help Teddy Bridgewater out. It's going to allow him to Chase to come in and contribute right away, and I think it's going to really pay dividends. All right, pick 4, New York Jets. Here's another team that I contended that I think they're a top 3 contender, just because they're another team that seems like they're in flux. I mean, I like what they did this past offseason. Joe Douglas got his first true offseason with the team. He got hired last year after the fact. They had brought in all these veterans that they signed to free agency deals, and he wasn't a part of that. Now, they need to help out Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, they drafted 3rd overall. They have not really provided him with almost anything to really help their team. And this past offseason, their first-round pick, they took a tackle, Mekhi Becton. I think that's going to be very helpful. But Sam Darnold still doesn't have very many weapons. Okay? So they need to add that. And you think, pick 4. I think if Jamar Chase was available here, he definitely would have been a possibility. But he's not. I don't have him available in this scenario. So do they go with Jalen Waddell, who I really like, or somebody else? I don't think there's another receiver worth a top 5 pick. So do they reach for somebody, or do they just say, hey, we've got 2 first-round picks. Let's go out and let's get another position, an elite player. And I had them going out and getting Patrick Surtain, the cornerback out of Alabama. I like Patrick Surtain a lot. He's a guy that reminds me a lot of C.J. Henderson, who was drafted 9th overall by Jacksonville out of Florida. The thing I like about Surtain and Henderson is they've got that quick twitch. They've got the speed. They got the burst. And they've got that ability to stick with receivers in and out of breaks. But the thing that separates Surtain from Henderson is he's a lot more physical. He's not afraid of contact. And so I think that he can take that next step. I think, if Henderson was a 9th overall pick and Surtain is a better, more physical version of that, I don't know why he couldn't be a top 5 overall pick. All right, 5th pick, we have the Miami Dolphins that just took Tua Tagovailoa last year as their starting quarterback of the future. Another team that needs to add weapons. Sure, they've got Devontae Parker came on last year at the end. They've got Preston Williams, who showed flashes, is coming off an injury. But other than that, they don't have a whole lot. And I really like Jalen Waddell. Jalen Waddell, to me, we had 2 Alabama receivers go in the top 15 last year. Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. And I think Jalen Waddell, as a wide receiver prospect, is better than both of those guys. He doesn't have Henry Ruggs' top-end speed, but I think he's very close. He's got Jerry Jeudy's elite route running ability. He's got the ability to go up and get the ball in the air. So I think he's got the best of both Jeudy and Ruggs. He's got the best of both of those guys, and you combine it into one. That's why I think he's a better prospect. Sure, he's not very big. He's not a 6'2", 6'3", big physical receiver, but we're seeing in this NFL, he doesn't have to be big. He doesn't have to be a huge receiver to have success. So that's why I think, you could see him maybe going, maybe this is still high. I get it. Even when I was doing the mock, I'm like, that seems a little high for Jalen Waddell. But the fact that he's got those traits, we're seeing smaller receivers be more important in this league, and he's got that connection with Tua Tagovailoa. I think it makes all the sense. All right, number 6, I have the New York Giants take in Greg Rousseau, the defensive end from Miami. Rousseau actually has already opted out of the 2020 college football season and is declared for the draft. He's hired Drew Rosenhaus as his agent. And so we could start the process developing. He's only a redshirt sophomore, so there's a limited amount of tape on Rousseau. But what we've seen is he's big and long, 6'7". He's athletic. He's very, as a athlete and physically, he's got all the potential in the world. But he needs to continue to develop, and we didn't get to see that this season. But he's got that high ceiling, and I think we've seen guys like him, and maybe he'll slide a little bit because we didn't get that second look at him and more tape on him. But he's got that potential. And pass rushers with high-end potential will always, and production too, will always rise up in the draft. The Giants desperately needed edge defender under James Bettcher, their past defensive coordinator. They didn't rely on true edge rushers. They wanted to blitz with their linebackers, win with their front four. Now that they're going in a different route with their defense, they need those edge guys, and they don't have them. Rousseau is a perfect fit, and with what they want to do in their defense, it's going to be a defense that's got a Patriots style influence. So I think he's a guy that kind of can fit with that. And like I said, the value is there too. Pick 7, I have the Bengals going with Penei Sewell. This is an odd pick for me because when I was doing this mock and I had these teams here, to me, Penei Sewell is my top-rated prospect in the number 1 or number 2. I think I have him right behind Trevor Lawrence. But he's one of the best offensive tackle prospects I've watched in my 11 years of doing this. And he's got some things he needs to still work on. He's not a perfect prospect, but his potential, his athletic traits, his power that he shows is next level. The problem is, as I look at these picks ahead of him, and I want to put him super high, but who are they going to, where's he going to go? Jacksonville's going to take a quarterback. Washington, if they're picking 2, is going to take a quarterback. Carolina could take him at 3, but they have an impact receiver that they want to take. The Jets just drafted a left tackle. Miami just drafted a left tackle in the first round. The Giants just taken a tackle in the left tackle in the first round. So there's a lot of guys. It's just that's how he fell. And who knows? I didn't do trades. Some team sitting back here potentially could trade up to get him. But like I said, I didn't do trades. Now, Cincinnati also took a tackle in the first round a couple years ago in Jonah Williams. But the nice thing about this is the Bengals, they got their quarterback in Joe Burrow. My space there for a second. They got their quarterback in Joe Burrow, and they need to now protect him. They got weapons. A.J. Green hopefully is back to being healthy. They drafted T. Higgins. They've got Tyler Boyd. So they've got some weapons. They need to protect Joe Burrow. And Jonah Williams getting him back from injury will help, and he'll be the starting left tackle in 2020 if there's a season. But the nice thing about Jonah Williams is he's got a lot of position flexibility. He's played right tackle before. He's got the traits to move inside to guard. And so I think getting Sewell, you can put him at left tackle, and then you can find the next best place for Jonah Williams. And now you've improved your offensive line at 2 positions. Joe Burrow's got good instincts. I loved seeing him this past year maneuver within the pocket, and he had to do that because LSU's offensive line, there was always a guy. I know they got rated pretty high, but they always had guys coming through. But you got to keep Burrow healthy. You got to keep him upright and getting those balls to those weapons, and I think Sewell will be able to do that. All right, pick 8, I have the Detroit Lions taking Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State. When I look at this, and Parsons is another guy that's opted out, so he's already declared. A lot of people think he's the best defender in this class. He's a true athlete, explode. He's got the speed, he's got the explosiveness, he's got the power. He's a do-it-all. He can rush the passer. And when I see him, he to me screams like a Patriots type guy. His fact that he can do all these things, he's physical. And I look at Matt Patricia with the Lions, and who knows if they're picking 8, maybe if Patricia doesn't survive the season, so they're moving in somewhere else. But if he's there, this to me seems like he's their middle linebacker of the future. Sure, they've drafted a few guys. They got the linebacker out of Hawaii. They've got Jared Davis there, but Jared Davis, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. I could see Patricia saying, this is my Dante Hightower, and let's take him here. We want to build this defense. We've addressed the defensive line. We've addressed the secondary. Let's get our linebacker, our play caller, our leader of this defense, and that's the route that I went there. All right, rounding out the top 10, pick number 9, I have the Arizona Cardinals taking Northwestern offensive tackle Rayshawn Slater. Slater's a guy that I didn't watch initially with the offensive tackles when I broke down, but I ended up going back to him because I had heard his name out there from guys like Jim Nagy and a few other draft experts that I keep an eye on. And so I went back, and he is a guy that really stood out to me. He's my 2nd-rated offensive tackle in this class. Such a smooth mover, good power. The game I saw against him against Stanford, he just completely shut down. I know Stanford doesn't have an elite edge rusher, but they're a well-coached, very physical team, and he was able to hold his own. And I look at the Cardinals, and here's a team that we thought they potentially were going to take a tackle. Their offensive line was a mess. Kyler Murray was running for his life, and there was talk that Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs, they were going to take a tackle. Now they ended up going with the athlete in Isaiah Simmons, but that still leaves a void at the tackle position. And I think after this year, another year of Kyler Murray running around and still making plays, and maybe offensive line isn't a big need for them. They don't say, hey, we've got this athletic quarterback. We want to get the ball out quick. We don't need elite offensive linemen. But I think, DJ Humphries is a guy that they're potentially ready to move on from. I think you slide Slater into that left tackle spot, and I think you've got a guy that can at least protect Kyler Murray's backside, give him a little bit more time to throw the ball downfield to DeAndre Hopkins and their weapons they have there. So it just made a lot of sense to me. At pick 10, I have the Las Vegas Raiders taking Marvin Wilson, the defensive tackle out of Florida State. Now, in the last several years, we saw Derek Brown go in the top 10 last year to the Carolina Panthers. We saw Dexter Lawrence go 17th overall a couple years ago to the New York Giants. We've seen guys like Vita Vea and Danny Shelton get drafted in the top 20 and top 15. The next guy that fits that type of mold is Marvin Wilson. And I'm not if you followed me over the last years, I'm never a big fan of these big, huge, powerful defensive tackles, just because to me they're one-trick ponies. They're guys that are elite run stuffers, and they don't give you a ton outside of power with the pass rush. And to me, it's a me thing. I just don't value that position as much as a guy that can rush the passer, just because it's a pass league. But those guys go early. Derek Brown was the 8th overall pick. Dexter Lawrence was 17. Vita Vea was 11. So they will go high if they're an elite level. And I think Marvin Wilson fits into this. To me, if we're looking over the last 2 years, I think Derek Brown was the best out of that group, and Dexter Lawrence is kind of there. I think Marvin Lewis is in between a Derek Brown and a Dexter Lawrence. I like Marvin Wilson better than Dexter Lawrence. I don't think he's as good as Derek Brown. And when we look at the Raiders and look at them trying to build up their defense, the defensive tackle, the physical run-stuffing power guy is lacking in their defense. They got Maurice Hurst, who's had success with that defense. They've got Max Crosby on one end. They're hoping Clelin Ferrell kicks it into gear on the other end. They need that last piece along the defensive line, and I think Marvin Wilson will provide that. You look at Paul Gunther when he was in Cincinnati. They had guys like Andrew Billings and other big nose tackle type guys like that, and they're 4-3. So I think Wilson will fit there. I thought Derek Brown was a guy, if he fell a little bit, could go to the Raiders, and it just makes a lot of sense to me. All right, if we move on to the the teens. We see Jacksonville's second first-round pick. This is their pick from the Rams. And I know if you're watching this, you're like, whoa, you have the Rams finishing 11th? Yeah, I just feel like the Rams are going to get pushed down in their division. I think they're still a good team. I just think they've gotten worse over the last couple of years. And so that's why I think they could be fitting here. I'll probably be wrong. I always try to take a team and push them down, and I end up getting burned. So I'll probably get burned here, but that's fine. And so the Jaguars this is their pick from the Jalen Ramsey trade. And I look at Jacksonville, and I had him going quarterback number 1 overall. So here I have him taken like best defensive player available. And I know Dylan Moses didn't play at all in 2019. He's supposed to be back in 2020. Here's a guy that I absolutely love. I think as good as Reuben Foster was, as good as Deontay Hightower was, as good as Rashaan Evans was, Dylan Moses, to me, is the best linebacker prospect that has come out of Alabama under Nick Saban. He's got it all. The speed to go sideline to sideline, the physicality and the burst to come up and fill a hole. He can rush the passer. He can drop into coverage. He can do it all. The big question on Dylan Moses is his health, because he missed all of that last year with a knee injury. There was talk that maybe he even declared last year, and people were still putting him in the first round of mock drafts. He's that good. And the Jaguars need a middle linebacker. Yes, they've got they had Telvin Smith a few years ago, and he played well with them. The speed to kind of go sideline to sideline and all that. But he's retired. He hasn't come back. And they've got pieces, but they just need to rebuild this defense. And I think Dylan Moses would be a guy that you can put in the middle of your defense. He's can do it all. He can play in coverage. You need your linebackers to play in coverage, in today's NFL. And I think you put him in there. You put him next to Miles Jack, another athletic freak, and your linebacking core is getting back to what it used to be. All right, pick 12, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. I have them taking an offensive tackle in Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. Here's a team, I like the Chargers. I think the biggest question mark with the Chargers is going to be at quarterback. They've got talent, but you're relying on Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert to take this team from a team that was picking 6th overall to getting into the playoffs. And I like Justin Herbert as a prospect. Tyrod Taylor has had times in the NFL where he's played well. I just don't think that they're going to be able to do enough to get him in the playoffs. The Chargers also need help on the offensive line. They had Russell Okung as their left tackle. They ended up trading him to the Panthers for Trey Turner, who's going to improve the guard position for the Chargers. But now you have Brian Bulaga, who has been a long-time right tackle for the Packers, playing left tackle for the Chargers. And Bulaga, it's going to be a run-oriented team, quick, get the ball out fast, and I think that's going to help Bulaga. But I think he's better suited on the right side. I know he played left tackle at Iowa coming out. So, he's got experience, but I think it's one of those things. He's a temporary fix. After a year of that, bring in a guy like Leatherwood, elite athlete for a left tackle position, quick slide, lateral movement. I think he's going to get even better with another year of play if the season happens. And so I think he's a good fit there. Pick 13, Chicago Bears. Their first time they've been in the first round for a couple years since the Khalil Mack trade. And I have them going quarterback. And I have them taking Trey Lance, the quarterback out of North Dakota State. There's been a lot of talk about Trey Lance lately because the FCS, they're canceling their fall seasons, moving them to the spring. Trey Lance showed a ton of skill, a ton of traits to be a good NFL, an elite NFL quarterback prospect, but it's been in the FCS. It's been 1 year. Yes, it was a great 1 year, but he might not have another year. So there's been a lot of talk. Will he transfer? What will he do? Will he opt out? If he enters the draft, I like him. I think he could be the second quarterback taken, but there's a lot of unknowns with him right now. And so I think that drops him a little bit. And like I said, there's no trades. So I think he's probably going to be a top 10 pick because quarterbacks go that early, and he's better than a lot of the guys that have gone that early. But like I said, there's no trades. The Bears, I have them finishing 13th. I know last year Trubisky was a complete mess, and they still finished 8-8 and nearly made the playoffs. I could see the wheels kind of falling off this year. The Bears sliding down. They need a new quarterback, and I think Trey Lance not only fits Matt Nagy's scheme, but gives them a true franchise quarterback, something they really haven't had for quite a while or ever. All right, 14, the Denver Broncos. I haven't taken Samuel Cosmi, the offensive tackle out of Texas. Garrett Bowles has been an utter disaster. No, I shouldn't say an utter disaster because he's going on his 4th year as a starter for the Broncos, but he hasn't been good. He's a walking holding call. I remember the Bears game last year. He had 3 holding calls in a row. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. They're ready to move on from him. I'm surprised they didn't draft anyone, and I know they wanted to beef up their weapons for Drew Lock. But after they've done that, after they've built up the weapons, I could see them looking to build that offensive line to give Drew Lock time. And Cosmi is a guy that he's big, 6'7". He's long. He's got, he's not this elite athlete like an Alex Leatherwood is, but he's got the ability to slide laterally enough. He's got the hands and that length to keep those guys at bay. And I think he's a guy that's perfect for what the offense they want to run. All right, pick 15. I have the Cleveland Browns taking Caleb Farley, the cornerback out of Virginia Tech. Farley was the first prospect to already opt out of the season and declare for the NFL draft. He cited some medical issues and some family history for doing so. He's a guy, he's big, 6'1", 6'2". He's got elite speed. He's probably going to go higher than this. Like I said, another example of, hey, there's no trades. I'm trying to, fit guys in the slots. I think he can go a lot higher, but the Browns are a team that they don't have a whole lot of weaknesses. It's crazy to say the Cleveland Browns don't have a lot of weaknesses. And they're the Cleveland Browns, and they're still not making playoffs. They're still picking in the top 15. So what I said is, who's the best available player? And a guy like Farley fit well with what they wanted to do because they need corners, and they've got Denzel Ward, they've got Greedy Williams, but they need that third guy. And I think Farley could come in, and you've got Denzel Ward and Farley and Greedy Williams, guys that you can kind of move around. Maybe you put Denzel Ward in the slot and Farley and Williams on the outside. Farley probably beats out Greedy Williams, and I think it definitely gives them a lot more flexibility and another elite potential cornerback. All right, let's move on. 16, the Atlanta Falcons. I haven't taken LeBron Ray, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. Here's a guy that as soon as I started watching him on tape, he instantly jumped out. A guy that's an elite athlete, good ability to get upfield and penetrate. And when we think of the Atlanta Falcons, that's what they want. They want to get upfield. They want to penetrate. They want to play fast. They've got Grady Jarrett at one defensive tackle spot, who's played tremendous for them. They drafted Marlon Davidson, who's going to be kind of a tweener defensive tackle. I said, hey, let's get another guy that fits perfectly in what they want to do. You can rotate those 3 guys in. You can play all 3 of them at the same time on early downs. And I think Ray would be a guy that could get upfield very well in this defense. All right, pick 17, Minnesota Vikings. If we know anything about the Vikings and Mike Zimmer is he loves cornerbacks. He drafted one last year in Jeff Gladney. He's drafted Xavier Rhodes. He's drafted Trey Waynes. He's drafted Mike Hughes. He loves taking corners. He can never have enough corners. When he was with the Bengals, they drafted Darqueze Dennard. They drafted Leon Hall. They drafted, Jonathan Joseph. He loves having elite corners, and they're remaking their cornerback position. They got Gladney. They've got Hughes. They've got Holton Hill. They've got pieces, but I don't think they're done. And Shaun Wade's a guy that I think is a good value here, and he gives them something else. And I think you've got Hughes, you've got Gladney, who they want their starters to be. They need that third guy, whether it's Cameron Dantzler, who they drafted in the mid-rounds of last year, whether it's Harrison Hand. I think Wade's a guy that played in the slot last year for Ohio State. I think he's gonna slide outside this year. I think he's gonna play well. He fits with, he's got the same athletic profile and size that we've seen out of Denzel Ward and Marcus Lattimore and Jeffrey Okudah. So he's just that next guy, and I think he's got the ability to play slot. He's got to play outside, and it just gives him more flexibility. Maybe he comes in and he's their slot corner. You got Gladney on one side, and Hughes on the other, and Wade's in the slot. Maybe you move Gladney into the slot and Wade outside. Once again, it just gives him that versatility. The Vikings are remaking their defense. They lost a lot of starters from last year's group. I think they just continue to add more pieces to it. All right, pick 18, I have the Patriots taking Brock Purdy, the quarterback out of Iowa State. I don't have the Patriots making the playoffs. Whether that's because Cam Newton couldn't stay healthy, is a shell of his old self, or the Jarrett Stidham just isn't the guy, whether it's they've had too many losses, I still think the Patriots are still a great shot to make the playoffs, but I just have them missing. And I think if they miss, it's because of that quarterback position, and I think they look for their next guy. And when I watch Brock Purdy, the comp that just jumps out at me is Jimmy Garoppolo. Just in their nature, they look a lot like the ball comes out quick. It's very decisive. When I watched Jimmy Garoppolo at Eastern Illinois, the ball came out real quick. He always knew where he was going. Purdy's the same way at Iowa State, and he's just got that knack for finding the open guy. He can stare down pressure, and I just think that reminds me a lot of Garoppolo. So I think the Patriots, if they feel the same way, we know Belichick loved Garoppolo, so they find their new guy. All right, pick 19, I have the Colts taking Paulson Adebo, the cornerback out of Stanford. The Colts went with cornerbacks in free agency. They brought in Xavier Rhodes from the Vikings. They brought in TJ Carey from the Browns to kind of help a group. Quincy Wilson they drafted a few years ago, hasn't panned out. They've got Rock Ya-Sin they drafted last year that kind of plays in the nickel, outside. So I think they're still unsettled at that cornerback position, and I think Adebo's a guy that doesn't get a lot of public pub or hype because he played on a Stanford team that wasn't very good, but he's big, he's physical, he moves fluidly. I think you put him at an outside corner in their scheme. He fits well with what they want to do, and it gives him a true starter. And then you can put Rock Ya-Sin, whether it's on the outside or in the slot, and it kind of fills in a little bit better. All right, rounding out the teens, pick 20, I have the Dallas Cowboys taking Florida tight end Kyle Pitts. Now, I mocked a tight end quite a bit to the Cowboys last year. They didn't end up drafting one. We saw Blake Jarwin kind of continue his development. He actually played pretty well, and so this isn't an indictment of Blake Jarwin. It's just saying, hey, the Cowboys are building up their offense, and they drafted CeeDee Lamb to go with Amari Cooper and to go with Michael Gallup to help Dak Prescott out. What's the next step? It's maybe getting that game breaker as tight end. And Pitts is a guy jumped out of me right on tape. He runs his route. He runs like a receiver. When he was running routes, I was like, this guy, I was showing it to people. I'm like, this guy's a tight end. They're like, he looks like a receiver. And he's big. He's still developing. But I think with Mike McCarthy as their coach, he had a lot of success with Michael Finley. He had Jimmy Graham, at the end. Do they see Kyle Pitts as being that version? You pair him up with Jarwin. You give another weapon to Dak Prescott because, Dak Prescott's a good quality NFL quarterback, but he needs weapons. And just get him more weapons, the more success he's going to have. And I think that's why Kyle Pitts fits in right here. All right, moving on to the 20s. We have pick 21. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Abraham Lucas, the offensive tackle out of Washington State. He's actually a right tackle. And the Steelers had Matt Feller as their right tackle last year, but they're moving him inside the guard, and that leaves Chuma Okorafor, I butchered that, I'm sorry, and Zach Banner to battle for the right tackle position. I don't think either of those guys are starting caliber tackles in the league, so whether they just decide to move Feller back out to right tackle, regardless, if they want to keep him in at left tackle, they need to improve the right tackle. They want to move feller to left guard. They need to improve the right tackle position. Make sure I say that right. And so Lucas is another guy. I think he's one of the better offensive line in this class after Penei Sewell. And so it's just a natural fit. Here's a guy that's big, physical, but has the lateral quickness in that. I watched him against Washington. Washington's got a quality edge rusher in Joe Tyron. They've got good defensive linemen. He held his own. He gave up one pressure the entire game. And his ability to slide, get his hands, he locks up defenders. I think Washington State doesn't run the ball a lot, but I think his skill set would allow him to transition and to be able to develop as that. I just think, to me, with what Pittsburgh wants to do, the need at that position, Lucas's value, I think he's a good fit here. Pick 22, I have the Miami Dolphins taking running back Travis Etienne out of Clemson. The Dolphins are revamping their team, and they've got, I had them taken. They took Tua Tagovailoa last year. I had them taken Jalen Waddell earlier. The next step is to get a good running back. And while it's easy to get, I'm not a big fan of taking running backs early, especially in the first round, unless it's Ezekiel Elliott, unless it's a Saquon Barkley, those type of guys. But the Dolphins could utilize an elite level running back. And Etienne, to me, kind of reminds me of the impact that a Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs was, a couple years ago, the consensus top running back in the draft. He was the only one that was first-round caliber, but he was a late first-round pick, and that's where the Raiders took him. And he came in, and he was instant impact for the Raiders, and he was one of their better offensive players. And I think Etienne can do that for the Dolphins. He's a top-end speed. He's a home run hitter. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And, yeah, the Dolphins have Matt Breida. Yes, they have Jordan Howard, but those guys aren't on long-term contracts. Breida's only on a one-year deal. Howard's got 2 years. So I think not only does Etienne complement those guys, but I think if you got a Jordan Howard who has some success in his first year, I think you could put Etienne next to him and develop Etienne into that feature back. Like I said, I think come in and be an instant impact, another weapon for this offense. And I think he fits well within Chan Gailey's defense or offensive scheme. All right, pick 23, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have them taking Syracuse safety Andre Cisco. Now, the Buccaneers, they've got Tom Brady. They've got a talented offense. I look to continue to see them to build up this defense under Todd Bowles. And wherever Todd Bowles has gone, they've invested a lot in their secondary, especially the safety position. It was famously when he was with the Cardinals as their defensive coordinator, they would play 4 safeties at a time. Now, the Bucs do have Justin Evans and Mike Edwards and Jordan Whitehair. They just drafted Antonio Winfield. But I don't think that stops them. I think Cisco's a guy that is different than each of those players that they already have. I think he's a true free safety. I think he's a guy that's got good range, good ball skills, could fly around the field, and that's different than what those guys have out of them. Evans and Winfield are true strong safeties. Mike Edwards is a guy that can play in the slot. So I think you got a guy like Cisco, put him over the top, and I think he fits well with what they want to do. All right, pick 24, New York Jets. I had them passing on a receiver at pick 4 just because I thought they missed out on Chase. It was a little too early for Waddell. And I said, hey, it's a deep receiver class. They can pick someone up in that their second pick. And that's what I had them doing here with Rondaelle Moore, a guy that's since he came in to college football for Purdue has been an instant impact player. He practically won that game against Ohio State as a true freshman on his back. Ohio State, for as good as many NFL prospects that they have on their defense, he was the best player on that field. And he's a little bit smaller, but as I said earlier, we've seen smaller receivers are having success with the NFL rules on the defensive backs. We're seeing these smaller, speedier guys have a lot more success. And I think Moore was a guy that can fit well with the Jets. The Jets drafted Denzel Mims last year on day 2, more physical, down the field threat. You got Rondaelle Moore that you can put in the slot. You can move him around in wherever you want him. and get him out in space, whether it's short routes, whether it's going deep. You take advantage of Sam Darnold's strong arm, and Sam Darnold needs weapons. And to me, Rondaelle Moore not only was the best receiver available, I think that pick 24 is a tremendous value, and he fits with what they want to do. Pick 25, Buffalo Bills. I have them taking Carlos Basham, the defensive end out of Wake Forest. The Bills are another team that's got a strong defense, but they really don't have a true impact pass edge rusher. They took A.J. Epinesa in the second round. I like A.J. Epinesa, but it's still a second-round pick. And Epinesa, I think, is going to fit well with their defense. I think if you get a guy like Basham, you put him next to him, and the Bills have then two quality edge rushers to go with. They're good linebackers to go with an elite level secondary, and just making this defense even better and building the defense up, which allows Josh Allen to kind of make his plays, take his shots, and don't have to carry this team on his back. Pick 26, we have the Green Bay Packers taking Chris Olave, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, I love Chris Olave. He is actually my third-rated receiver in this class. I don't have him as the third receiver taken. Who knows if he even goes in the first round? But to me, I really like him. Who knows? Maybe I like him and others will come around. Maybe it's the other way. But the Packers need receiver help. They needed receiver help in the 2020 NFL draft, and they didn't take anybody. Instead, they went a quarterback that's going to sit for a few years, a running back that's going to back up Aaron Jones, and a fullback. Their first three picks. They didn't draft a receiver at all. And they picked up Devin Funchess. Now he's opted out of the 2020 season. So they need to give Devontae Adams some help. And I think Olave, and the thing about the Packers under Matt LaFleur is they want to model themselves after the 49ers. And he's a Shanahan guy. And so if I look to what Kyle Shanahan's been building and the type of receivers that have had success under him, Olave is a guy that I think fits well. To me, he reminds me of what Emmanuel Sanders provided to the 49ers last year. You put Olave into the Packers. You pair him opposite of Devontae Adams, another good route runner, a guy that's got speed. He could work the ball down the field. He can run routes at all three levels. I think getting that elite route runner will definitely help and take some pressure off of Devontae Adams, but also fit well with the offense they're looking to build. All right, pick 27, the Tennessee Titans. I am taking Pat Freiermuth, the tight end out of Penn State. If we look at the Titans' offense, they've got A.J. Brown, and then they really don't have much for weapons. The Titans used to have Delaney Walker. He was a good tight end for them. He's no longer with them. They had drafted Jonnu Smith, who hasn't panned out. They could use some tight end help. And I think Freiermuth's a guy that he's not the elite athlete that a Kyle Pitts is, but he's got sneaky athletic. To me, he's a Hunter Henry type, a guy that's quick at the stem. He can create separation with that quick burst. He's a good route runner for the position. He's got a good catching radius. And Tennessee, they want to run two tight ends. They want to run the ball. I think tight end in a run-first offense like this, a tight end is going to be a good fit with what they want to do. To get an elite pass catcher will help. He can be their second weapon to pair up with A.J. Brown. To me, it makes a lot of sense. All right, pick 28 out of the Philadelphia Eagles, taking Chaz Surratt, the linebacker out of North Carolina. The Eagles are a team that a lot of people are saying, hey, they're going to take Kenneth Murray. There's some buzz that they're going to take the Oklahoma linebacker. Now, they went receiver, which we all thought they were going to do anyway. But when you look at this class, we've got elite linebackers in Micah Parsons and Dylan Moses. The third guy is Chaz Surratt, and I don't think he's not too far behind those guys. Here's a guy that started his career at North Carolina as a quarterback. He started games at North Carolina as a quarterback. Last year, they moved him over to linebacker, and he looked like he'd been playing the position for his entire life. And he probably did in high school and that, but just such a feel for the game. And he's got that athletic traits. Wasn't a pocket quarterback when he played quarterback. So he's got the athletic traits. He's got a feel for the game. He was just always going around and making plays. And if you look at the Eagles, they've got Nate Gary as a guy that's been playing linebacker for them. They've got a few journeyman guys, and that they don't have an elite linebacker. And linebacker is probably not a position they truly value as much as defensive line, and they've been working a lot on the secondary. But if they could get a guy like Surratt in, I know they had a lot of success a few years ago with Jordan Hicks. I think Surratt's a much more upgraded version than that. I think it just kind of rounds out their defense. I think it's going to be a good value pick here. I could see Surratt easily as a top 20 pick. I just think it's value and a great fit. All right, pick 29, we have the San Francisco 49ers. I haven't taken running back, and it was hard to take a running back here for the 49ers because the Shanahans don't value running backs, especially in the first round. They've always gone with journeyman guys. I mean, we've seen Alfred Morris rush for 1,000 yards, Thomas Davis, maybe not Thomas, but when Shanahan was with the Broncos, they had all these guys that you never heard of, other than Thomas, that had all the success. And with 49ers, he's had that success with Raheem Mostert and Matt Breida and all these guys. Now, so why would he take a running back in the first round? Well, and maybe I'm just reaching here, and I'm probably going to be wrong, and that's fine. But when I look at this pick, I think since Shanahan has taken over this team, they love versatile pieces. Kyle Juszczyk, Deebo Samuel. They drafted Jalen Hurd out of Baylor. Guys that can play multiple positions. And when you look at Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis, he's a running back that played a lot in the slot and a lot at running back. He kind of intermixed. They had his teammate Patrick Taylor, got drafted to the Washington Redskins, another guy that played a lot in the slot, a lot of running back. And so they use these pieces to really kind of have a versatile style offense. And I think Gainwell's a guy that fits in the zone scheme. He's a decisive runner, get upfield, uses speed, his burst to get upfield. But he also has all that experience in the slot, running routes against linebackers and getting separation. So I think that pull of having that versatility, I think will really intrigue him to the 49ers. And like I said, I'm probably dead wrong with this. They're not going to take a running back this early, but who knows? All right, pick 30. I have the Baltimore Ravens. I have them going offensive line and taking Creed Humphrey. Sure, Matt Skura has developed into a quality starter, but Skura also had an nasty injury last year that saw him tear all three ligaments in his knee along with a dislocated kneecap. It hurts just thinking about that. They re-signed him to a 1-year deal, so they're hoping and expecting him to be ready for the first game. But he's a 1-year deal, a guy that's coming off a major injury. Is there any guarantee that he's going to return to his old self? With Lamar Jackson, with this run-oriented team, they need a strong offensive line. The Ravens has always wanted a strong offensive line. Creed Humphrey, to me, is the number one interior lineman in this draft. Plug him in there at center. Good to go. All right, last two picks. Pick 31, these are the teams I'm projecting to go to the Super Bowl, the New Orleans Saints and the Kansas City Chiefs. For the Saints, I am taking another defensive piece in Jay Tufele out of USC, a guy that I don't think he has an elite trait, but he does everything very good. A guy that's got the power to take on blocks and clog up the hole. He's got enough burst and speed and hand usage and lateral agility to be a pass rusher. Like I said, he's not elite in everything and in one thing, but he's very good in it all. I think you pair him next to Sheldon Rankins. You got Cam Jordan. You've got guys, Marcus Davenport. Just let's finish out this offensive line or defensive line, and I think he fits well within there. Pick 32, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. I am going receiver, taking Tutu Atwell, the wide receiver out of Louisville. And you're going to say, you're going to take another receiver for the Chiefs? Well, we always, a lot of people thought, hey, are they going to go defense last year in the first round? Cornerback, linebacker, defensive lineman. And they ended up going running back and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The Chiefs, to me, they're built on offense. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, you're gonna focus your team on offense, and so they're gonna always continue to add pieces. I think last year just showed that. They've got Tyreek Hill, they've got Sammy Watkins, they got Kelsey, they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But after their starters at receiver, the Chiefs really don't have much. And Sammy Watkins is entering the last year of his contract. And so I could just see the Chiefs. They got Mecole Hardman too. Don't let me forget him. And they're built on speed and getting the ball downfield. And Atwell is a guy that I think, 5'9", reminds me a lot of Tyreek Hill. Just elite, easy speed. You watch him play for Louisville, and he is a true weapon. They get the ball to him on fly sweeps, reverses. They get him downfield. And I think he just, to me, is a perfect fit for this Chiefs offense. And a lot of people thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to go in the first round of last year's draft, but the team that fit the best with him was the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs are going to look at guys a little bit different. I think Atwell really fits well with what they want to do. And like I said, I think he fits well. That is my first round of my mock draft. We went through that. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I will answer them there. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at draft_Brian. You should see it in the corner down there. You can find my mock drafts, the written mock drafts, on thehuddlereport.com. I'm going to do a lot of them here as well. So like I said, if you have questions and that you have on certain things, put them in the comments. I'll answer them down there. Follow me if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that. Hit the notifications button. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time.